Hi, I'm Phil Pelucha from Billionaires in Boxers, and welcome to another episode of Billionaires in Boxers and Pelucha TV. I'm joined by Paul Lyon. Paul, welcome. I'm really glad that you're here.
Good afternoon, Phil. Finally, it's great to talk to you.
Yeah, we got there in the end, and I'm really pleased that we did. So, Paul, obviously, avid, lifelong supporter and have been involved in Oxford City Football Club for a very long time. Admittedly, not back as far as 1882, I don't think. But the club's going through some incredible things at the moment that you've been a tremendous part of. So I'm really glad that we're here to just kind of explore that a little bit and dive into, you know, your experience with the club and your experience in football in general.
Yeah, sure. Be pleased to talk through it with you.
Excellent. Love it. So let's start right at the very beginning if we can. I know you're a businessman. You've been involved in several different industries. What brought you into football? What was it that kind of inspired you to get involved away from the terraces and into the boardroom, so to speak?
I've loved football all my life. It's been my passion from a very early age. I used to watch my father play, and so I've always been a football supporter. I was never really any good at the game, but I love the sport, and I've been involved. As a child, I played. I played back in the 70s, where you had 11 players on the pitch, and you had a 12th man. And once the 12th man came on, there were no other substitutions. It was once you're off, you're off.
Yeah.
But I was always the 12th man. It was I was carrying the oranges in the water bowl, and I wasn't good enough to play for my local team, but I loved football, and so I used to go and watch Oxford City. It was my local team to where I lived. It was 100 yards from my house, and I used to follow Oxford City. Also followed Oxford United. We're a city of two clubs, and you can support both in the city.
That's nice.
And so I followed Oxford United when they got to the top division, the first division as it was then, Premier League as it's now known, and I had some great times following Oxford United, but Oxford City was always the local community club, an amateur club, and it always went down the amateur route ever since its founding in 1882. Never went down the professional route at all. I wanted to be involved in football in some way, and I became a referee as a young man. I decided to referee to stay in the game, and so I was a semi-professional referee. I was never good enough for the football league. But I was a semi-pro referee, and I enjoyed doing games Saturday afternoons and Sundays. And then about 30 years ago, I got involved with the local youth leagues, and I became referee secretary for the youth league, handling all the admin. Then I started looking after the fixtures for the youth league. In Oxford, we've got about 10,000 kids play football every Sunday, and we've got 700 teams. And so I've been looking after the administration for that for nearly 30 years now, and I enjoy doing that as a hobby, and I'm still carrying on. I always said I would do it until my children stopped playing, because I got into that when my son was a 7-year-old, and we were left without a manager, so I started running the team. Yeah, and then the league was being run terribly. The administration wasn't very good. There was no organisation, and I've always seen myself as a really good administrator. So I went along to the league and said, "You guys need some help. I'm willing to help you. What do you need?" And so I went on to the committee for the league. And so my son was 7 at the time, and I said, "Well, I'll do it until my son gives up." Well, I didn't. I'd have 3 sons, and my third son is now 17, and he's nearly at the point when he's giving up. He's off to university next year. Right. So maybe it'll be the time for me to retire next year, or maybe not. I've actually got grandchildren now that have started to play in the league.
I love that.
So maybe I'll have to stay. But I've always loved football, so I wanted to be involved in some way, and so I've been doing it as a hobby for a long time. And then 7 years ago, I was already involved with Oxford City in terms of helping out with the youth setup, and we used to use their facilities for games. And a terrible thing happened at the club, and it's all in the social media. What happened at the club? And there were 2 directors of Oxford City Football Club. You had one director that I knew for 50 years, lovely guy, church-going guy, totally honest guy, and he was an accountant, and he run the football club for a long time. And he sort of was the day-to-day CEO looking after things at the club. Sure. And then we had an American investor that come along and bought 50% of the club, and suddenly, without any notice at all, he was locked up in America, put in a penitentiary for 10 years. Wow. Because he was involved in a share fraud in America. And suddenly half of Oxford City Football Club was owned by the American SEC. Because they took all the assets away from the American guy. and we had to basically buy half the club back from the American government. Obviously, they needed to do a restitution of funds back to the people that were wronged. At the time when the American got locked up in Florida, the other director was in a really bad situation because the American was funding the club basically. He was putting money into the club every week to pay the wage bills, and there wasn't really any fundraising going on at Oxford City. There was no commercial activity.
Right.
They never had really many youth teams, so the only real source of income was coming from the American. When he got locked up, that stopped overnight. And the other director had to try and work out how to keep the club running, and it was really difficult for him. He actually hung himself in the end and died.
I did read that, and I'm sorry to hear that.
And that happened in July 2016. So in July 2016, we had a director in prison. We had the other director committed suicide. There was nobody running the football club.
Wow.
And Justin Merritt approached me and said, "Look, I've been involved in football for years. I'm a local businessman. I'm a fan of the club. Would I be willing to come and have a look and see what I could do to help out and work out where is the football club and what can we do to sort it out?" Because at that time the season was about to start. We were in the National League South, which is the sixth tier of English football.
Yep.
There was no money coming in, and it was like a ship at sea without anybody steering it.
Sure.
So the first thing that we did was, where was the club financially? And it was difficult, but our aim was to keep the club going. And here we are 7 years later. The rest is history. I can go through the whole history if you want to, but that's really how I got involved.
I mean, there's a lot there to unpack, isn't there? So I guess the first question, taking it back, not to trivialize or overlook some of the really upsetting stuff that happened, but you mentioned that you watched your dad play. Did he play at a professional level, semi-professional level, or was he a gifted amateur?
Yeah, just an amateur player here. But Dad was actually a boxer. He was a really, really expert boxer. And he went professional, but my mum made him give it up. She didn't like him getting bashed in the face with boxing gloves, so my mum made him give it up. But he was an amateur player, and we had a local club. I used to go and watch my dad play at the local club, and that was my Sunday morning activity, was go down and watch Dad play. And
football wasn't much better back then, as you said, even with the 12th man, because I remember you watch. I'm not old enough to have played in there at all, but I watch a lot of the footage, and it's people getting a big crack on the head and getting a bandage wrapped around and quickly shoved back on to go and head the ball away from the corner, kind of thing.
That's right.
And people nowadays, you've got people on the. Go on.
Yeah, you didn't have the rolling substitutes. I mean, in kids football now, you've rolling substitutes where you can make substitutes on and off as much as you need to.
Yeah, sure.
But back in the day, there's once you're off, and managers and coaches were reluctant to make changes. And you've got one poor lad stood on the sideline, freezing to death in the English winter, and like, just get me on the pitch. I need to run around a bit,
Absolutely, I'm freezing. I don't know how much I can add to the game, but I'm freezing. I've got frostbite. Let me run. I understand that, and that must have been a really difficult time as well, because let's be honest here. When you took over the club, and really got involved from a board level position, at least. I know you've been involved previously, but there was a lot of trepidation around the club. There was some real sadness that you'd lost one of your own. There was the guy sat in prison, and then there's all the uncertainty with the US government. I mean, that must have been quite an overwhelming time, even as a fan, because I know, doing a lot of work in football, the one club I don't work with is Liverpool, and that's deliberate, because I find it very difficult to separate being a lifelong supporter and a fan with having to be involved in the business side of things. So that's you must have been wearing a lot of hats at that point. Yeah,
that's always the problem, isn't it? You always say it's never good to have a fan in charge of the club, because you let your heart rule your head. Yeah. And what we had to do was take a business approach to it. It's like, what can we do to make sure this club survives? Because there were two options. We liquidate the club and start again from the very bottom, take a 7-8 division relegation and start again, or do we try and fight and keep the club going? The club has battled 140 years to get to the steps of the level of football. Do we want to give all that away, or is there a way of saving it? So the first thing I had to do was work out. So I took over the financial side of the club. Justin is the football, the playing side, and the development. I'm the business side. And so my first job was, let's see how much money we owe. And there was a few £1 million of debt in the football club. And and it was the debt was more than double the turnover. It was a lot of money.
Right.
For a small football club, it was a lot of money, and there was no way that the football club would be able to pay that debt back just by regular trading on how it had been doing previously. Because what was happening before was the American investor was putting the money in every month just to pay all the bills.
Right.
But when that stopped, there was no commercial revenue coming in. The crowds were not really that good. There hadn't been really any work done to encourage people to come and watch the team.
Right.
And it was a really tough job. So we had to work out if we were going to have a go at keeping the club alive, how would we do it? So the first thing was, how much is the debt? Right, this is how much the debt is. How much have we got coming in per month? How much spare money have we got to repay that debt? Because you can only repay your debt from spare money. Because if you're getting 50 grand a month coming into a football club, 30,000 of that's just going to pay your normal bills, maybe 40,000, and then whatever's left is going to be what you've got to be able to pay off old things. What I found was that the money coming into the club was less than the monthly bills. So we were spending more just keeping the club alive than what was actually coming in. So there was no leeway there to be able to pay any debt off. So it was a critical situation. And when I came along, we had the HMRC knocking on the door saying, we want paying now, because with football clubs, they don't hang around. There's you've seen other football clubs that have gone into liquidation or administration in the past. The HMRC want paying today. And the ironic thing was, the first job I had was pay a corporation tax bill for a football club that was basically bankrupt because it had made money a few years previously and had a corporation tax bill. And I'm arguing with the government, hang on a minute, this is a company that's going to go into liquidation. It's not making any money. But what the government and HMRC say was, well, you have to pay this bill from 2 years ago. And then if you file your tax for this year and you've made a loss, then we'll give it you back again. Well, isn't that stupid? Why don't you just
That's
offset
ridiculous, isn't it?
Wallet? Well, we're having these sort of fights. But what we did was we had a look at where the money was owed to. We had a few local businesses that were owed money. We had a lot of financial institutions, banks that the club had borrowed money from to try and keep it afloat. And what we did was we asked them all for time. And I said, give us 3 months to have a look at the situation. If any of you get nervous and take the football club to court or try and put it into liquidation, you'll get no money. There'll be nothing. Nobody will get a penny. But if you bear with me and work with me, we'll get you paid. You just need to work with us. And
good.
So what we did was we collated a list of who was owed what money. We shared it with all the creditors. We said, right, this is how much money we owe. This is it. We're totally honest and upfront, and I think that's the only way you can be in these situations. You have to be in touch with where you are financially. This is what we've got coming in. This is what we've got going out. We cannot pay you anything at the moment, but these are our plans. This is what we're going to do to make sure we will be in a better position in 3 months' time.
Paul, I won't ask you who, because obviously that's not appropriate, but just as far as that negotiation is concerned, because obviously it's an interesting one, and it's one that I suspect a few clubs will have to have both historically and in the future. Were the creditors pretty susceptible to that? Were they pretty open to that style of, listen, just give me 3 months to try and get our act together, or was there some trepidation there?
It varied. HMRC wanted it immediately.
Yeah, of course.
No negotiation at all. You pay us first, otherwise we're going to close you down.
Yeah.
We had some banks that were secondary lenders, not high street banks, secondary lenders that you'd go to.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them were okay. They'd restructure it. They would charge you money for the privilege, but they gave us a 3-month break period on the payments, had it onto the end. They were pretty good.
Good.
There were a couple of them that were really nasty. I had one guy from Liverpool who was a solicitor from a finance company, and this money was owed by our charitable side of the football club, because we have a charity involved as well.
Sure, yeah.
Also, I've closed down far bigger charities than you, and I'll do the same if you don't pay me. And he was
charming.
really active and showed no empathy with the situation that we're in. And but in the end, eventually, I managed to get somewhere with him. We did a deal with him eventually, because they call your bluff. They think you're lying to them and you've got money and you're holding back.
Yeah,
and
sure.
When you actually show them, this is true. We're not actually playing a game here. This is real.
Yeah.
And eventually they do come on board, but it always does cost you money.
Of course.
Some lenders have got this sort of approach. Well, if everybody else agrees to defer, if we come in aggressively, then we'll get paid.
Right. Okay.
Some of them did take that approach. No, we want our money no matter what. And I think they took that approach that, if 90% of the lenders and 90% of the creditors will stand back for 3 months, if we go in hard now, we'll get our money.
Right.
And, there were a few that we had to pay. But it was, we had a plan. We had to find basically 100% increase in income.
Wow.
We had to double our income into the football club without increasing our overhead by too much. And that was the big
That's
ask.
tough going.
So we had to come up with a plan. And there was one master plan that we had to do that. Our football stadium was a grass pitch.
Right.
The address of our stadium is Marsh Lane. There's a clue there to the sort of playing surface we're playing on. We had a really boggy pitch in the winter, and in the summer it's a dust bowl. And when we have a bad winter, you'd probably not play on it for 3 months. So it meant you never really got as much use out of it as you needed.
Sure.
So the idea was to put a 3G pitch down on the stadium, because we've already got a 3G pitch as a training pitch next to it. And that was really good. We hired a pitch out to the local football teams. We use it for our community projects. And we said, right, if we could put a 3G pitch down as our main pitch, it will cost us £500,000, which we haven't got. That's the first thing. We need to find £500,000. But the income that will bring in will then give us enough to be able to service this debt, or at least a fair chunk of the money we're going to need. But where are we going to find £500,000 from? We've got no money. At this point in time, Justin and I, we put our own money into the club. We put £500,000 of our own money into just to keep the club ticking over. But the new pitch is going to cost us £500,000. And what as I mentioned to you earlier, we've got another football club in Oxford called Oxford United.
Sure.
The thing about Oxford United is they're in the third tier of English football.
They are.
But they've got no ground. They don't own their own ground. They don't own their own training ground either.
Right.
But they've got this status of where they are in the Football League. And we knew the chairman of Oxford United really well, a guy called Darrell Eales, he's now at Solihull Moors. He was Oxford United chairman at the time. And one of the things he said to us is, we're in the third tier. We don't own our own ground. We've got no training facility. How would Oxford City feel if we went into a partnership with Oxford United where we would put a 3G pitch down at our ground? United would use it for training and for their academy and for their ladies team, and they would pay us a commercial rate for using it.
Yes.
And in return, Darrell Eales would invest in the stadium and pay for the pitch.
Wow.
And we would have to pay him back over a period of time. But it was a partnership agreement that we put together 7 years ago. It was January 2017. 3 months after we took the club over, we put that agreement together.
Wow.
And the 3G pitch was installed in May of 2017. It took us 6 months to get there. We had to defer the creditors by another 3 months whilst the pitch was made, but because they could see things were progressing. We took a loan out with the chairman of Oxford United. We moved all the ladies team from Oxford United. They still play at our ground today. We do a ground share. They play every Sunday. We've still got the Oxford United Academy teams all playing on our pitch, and we're charging them £120,000 a year to use it. And so there, instantly, you've got income coming into the football club, and money that we've got coming in was being used to repay the money back for the loan and some of the other loans. And so that was the first thing we had to do. But not only did it give us this extra source of income, it meant we don't get any matches postponed anymore.
Yes.
In the last 7 years, we've had 2 games postponed for the weather in 7 years.
That's some going.
Heavy snow. Just heavy snow, that was. Yeah.
What was it? So for people kind of listening and enjoying watching this, what's the kind of comparison to the 7 years before, do you think, in terms of number of games postponed?
Well, when it rained in November, we probably wouldn't play till February.
Okay.
And we'd have away games only. And what happened was at the end of the season, you've got this really big fixture backlog where you've got like
congested
4 games in a week all at home. What we find now is the opposite. All our home games are up to date, and it's all our away games that are actually in the backlog. But yeah, it's brilliant because we never get games postponed. Our training's never postponed. The kids and the people that are hiring the facility can always play on it. It plays up to about minus 12 degrees. So we've never had it cold enough yet to have it frozen.
Nice.
So we've always got things going on. We can play early in the morning. We have Oxford University. They train on it at 7 o'clock in the mornings. Wow. Students get up early. and it's trained on until 11 o'clock at night. So, we've got an 18-hour...
You're really getting good use of it. That's incredible. I tell you what, this might sound rather naive, but I mean, I'm loving the idea of that synergy and that partnership between the two clubs. I mean, that's... I think of certain cities that would definitely not do that. They'd almost laugh at the downfall of the other team in the city. So, I
think what's good is we've never really been in opposition.
Right.
If you go back to the history, back in the 1950s, Oxford City were in what's called the Isthmian League, which is the amateur the side of the football, where you don't go any further. Isthmian League was the top, and it was for teams and clubs that didn't really want to go professional. They were just local community teams. Oxford United were in the Southern League, which was a professional route into the Football League pyramid. And they won the Southern League like 3 years running.
Right.
In 1962, Accrington Stanley went bankrupt. And therefore, the top of the Southern League were entered into the Football League. And Oxford United overnight went from being non-league into League Division 4, as it was at the time, and suddenly became the biggest club in Oxford. Previously to that, Oxford City were the biggest club.
Wow.
Oxford United were called Headington United, which was a suburb of Oxford just outside, which is where their stadium was. Oxford City was the team that had a stadium in the centre of the city. And we were getting bigger crowds, but the whole thing changed overnight, and United went from Division 4, 3, 2, and into 1 eventually, and they're now the biggest club, and they've got they're getting 8,000 or 9,000 supporters a game, and we're averaging 1,000 a game. So it's what has changed, but we've never really played in the same division.
It's never been that direct competitor. Yeah, I understand that.
We have issues in the past where we're both playing at home on the same day.
Right.
And if we're both at home, then we lose numbers off of our crowd.
Right.
But since we got promoted to the National League, which is the 5th tier of English football, the police said we can never play at home on the same day now because of the increased size of the crowds.
Understood.
So what we have now in Oxford is we have alternation. So United at home one week, City at home the next. We're now finding we're getting 100 or 200 more fans on our attendances.
Yeah.
United, and we also offer discount to the United season ticket holders, and so we've got this reciprocal arrangement where we help each other. So it's a really good sort of vibe. And we do take players on loan from United.
Yeah,
they look at our academy players and they'll take them in. So we have a really good relationship. And like you say, it's unusual. Can you imagine Liverpool and Everton doing that sort of thing?
Definitely not. No, I really can't. So, or Manchester United and Manchester City even, or so that we can go on and on. But no, I really can't. So I'm really pleased with that. But so look, let's fast forward a little bit, because we're clearly you've made some massive strides. You've got the club at least back on an even keel, and there's money coming through the door again. You get a few years of that success under your belt, and then COVID hits, which is a completely unprecedented time and pretty crazy. How did that affect you? And more importantly, how did you come out the other side of that?
Yeah, when Justin and I took over in 2016, as it was, we had a 10-year plan. And the 10-year plan was, first 5 years, clear the debt. 6 to 7 years, achieve the playoffs, and then by about year 10 get promotion. That was our sort of plan that we put down in paper.
Great.
So in those first 5 years, which was 2016 to 2021, gradually pay the debt down, keep the football club in the same division, don't get relegation, because with relegation it's very difficult to come back up again. So only one team comes up as champion.
You are National League South at this moment.
No, we were then, back in 2016 we were National League
I'm with
South.
you. Yep.
We'd been in the north and the south because we were on the border.
Okay. Which one was better for you to be in?
We're 50 miles from London, and they chucked us in the north for 3 years. And
crazy.
And north was very much difficult. It was much harder to play, boggy pitches, tough old stadiums, ex-Football League teams, big crowds. London was more, the South Division was more 3G pitches,
right.
Much more middle-class audiences. Very different type of football, much more passing game. So very contrasting.
Very
smaller
different.
Crowds in the south than the north. We did well in the north, but we did quite well in the south. There's not much really between it, but just a different style of football.
Sure, different style.
But we get to March 2020, and we're doing okay. We're just outside the playoffs. We've managed to steady the ship. The debts are coming down. We've now increased our turnover by 200%.
Wow.
So we're now earning more than we've got going out. We're clearing the debt down. We've appointed by this point, we're talking about March 2020 here, when COVID is just about to hit.
Yeah.
We've appointed a lovely manager, a guy called David Oldfield, who played for Manchester City back in the 1990s and 2000.
Okay, yeah.
David Oldfield's claim to fame was he scored 2 goals at Old Trafford for Man City when they beat Man United 2-0, which made him a hero on the blue side of Manchester.
I bet it did. He never needed to buy a beer again.
Yeah, but he played for Oxford United in his later career, and he came to manage us, and he brought a whole new ethos into the football club, and he'd been steering us towards those playoffs that we were talking about. By 2021, 2023, we were hoping to get into the playoffs or be thereabouts. So we were there, and the season stopped all of a sudden because of COVID, and we were probably a couple of places outside the playoffs at that point, and we were probably not going to make the playoffs that year. But it was towards the end of the season, and football in England stopped, and
yes, it did,
and we never knew what was going to happen next. The whole country closed down, and all the players were put on furlough because they weren't playing anymore. They were all released in June, and then suddenly it was announced, actually, we may be coming back to play football again, maybe in September. And so we're starting to work on September. Okay, what do we need to do when we come back? And we were told there would be audiences coming back into the stadium.
Sure.
Maybe at a restricted number. So we made plans, and we put the same budget together that we put in previous years. And we signed all the players, and then suddenly it was announced that, yes, we were starting, but we were only allowed to have 500 fans. No, actually, it was behind closed doors to start off with.
Yeah.
We started football behind closed doors to begin with, and then gradually supporters were coming back in again. So the first question was, how the hell are we going to afford to be able to play football behind closed doors? Because the players weren't paying. And our only income is, for the first team, is commercial money. But if nobody's watching, who's going to sponsor a club if nobody's watching?
You're right.
So what they announced was we were allowed to stream the games live on the TV, and technology was getting to the point then when we could actually put a camera up and stream it live. It's like, really? Can we do that? This was in September 2020 that we've suddenly got this technology where we could stick 2 cameras up, have a mixing desk, plug them all in on a internet connection, and we're now streaming our games live. And so we started doing that in September 2020, and it's really good.
Yeah.
And we had people watching our games remotely, and we weren't getting big audiences, but the government put some money in to help clubs. It was a bit controversial because
I remember at the time
they split the money equally amongst all the teams, and I agreed with it because I came out at the time and said, I think that's fair because clubs make their money from different sources.
Sure.
So in our league at the time, the biggest club in our league at that point in time were teams like Maidstone and Dartford that are getting a couple of thousand supporters a game, and they'd lost all that. We were only getting 400 or 500 a game, and we'd lost that. But our income and our survival didn't rely on the attendances. Our survival relied on us renting out our community pitches.
It's a good point.
We couldn't rent our pitches out, so we lost our money there.
Well, that was a large part of the controversy, wasn't it? And including when they brought out the National League streaming rights and the streaming deals when they brought out that framework. There was a lot of controversy around it because, a lot of those clubs that were getting thousands at the gate were saying, well, hang on, how come we're getting the same money as this team that's only getting a few hundred? But I think you're right. They completely overlooked the fact that you were also getting your income from other commercial revenue streams that were now also closed. Yeah,
that's right. So we put that argument forward, the fact that, when you actually looked at the government's decision, the government said they were going to fund the non-league football clubs for the loss of their income.
Right.
It didn't specifically say gate money, it said loss of their income.
Correct.
So we have a cafe, we have a bar, our college program was closed, our grass pitches were closed. We've got 6 netball courts at Oxford City. We are the central hub for netball in Oxford.
Right.
We have 1,000 girls playing netball on our facility. Netball was the last sport to come back because of handling the ball. You couldn't.
So you're so much more than a football club. It's like the sports hub, isn't it? It's like the center of sports in the region. Yeah.
We've done rugby and archery and all sorts of things at Oxford City. But so when the government money came out, that helped us during that period when we had no supporters coming in.
Sure.
And we had a very famous game in November 2020, a behind the closed doors FA Cup game, second round against Northampton Town.
Wow.
We were the home team that day with no supporters in the ground. Keith Curl, ex-Man City player, was the manager of Northampton. They were a League One team.
Yeah.
And they came to us and played us behind closed doors, and we beat them 2-1 and knocked
Wow.
them out.
Wow.
And we always remember that because the draw for the next round was being made live on BBC One before our match, because we were live on the TV for that game. And it was the only game on the television in the whole of Europe that day.
Wow.
It was a Monday evening in November, and there was no other game on in the whole of Europe that day. And we were told there was something like 3 million people watching Oxford City play that night.
That's fantastic.
It was incredible. And the draw was Shrewsbury Town. Whoever won would be playing Shrewsbury in the second round.
Yeah.
And of course Northampton were looking forward to playing Shrewsbury, but they didn't account for the fact that we were going to beat them 2-1.
That's wonderful.
We actually went through, and so that brought in some much needed income, because you get paid decent money for being the live TV game.
TV deals. Yeah, absolutely.
And what was a bit sad was after Christmas we played the second round. Before Christmas in December, we played the second round game away at Shrewsbury Town, again behind closed doors. And this was moved to a Sunday. It was live on the TV again.
Yeah.
The draw had been made. The winners will play Southampton away.
Yeah.
Who were a Premiership team.
Wow.
And it had already been announced it would be the live TV game. It was probably worth £250,000 to whoever played that game in TV revenue. And we played at Shrewsbury on the Sunday afternoon. It was 0-0 after full time. Our centre forward got sent off for a petulant David Beckham-like kick.
Oh no!
And we went down to 10 men, and we just couldn't cope then, and we lost. We let a goal in with 5 minutes of extra time left.
That's devastating.
The TV made their goalkeeper man of the match because he made a string of saves to keep them in it. We could have won the game on another day.
You always know you've had a good game when the opposition's goalkeeper's man of the match. Absolutely.
And the most saddest thing about it was the day after the game when we'd lost, Shrewsbury Town announced that all their players had contracted COVID and they wouldn't be allowed to play in the third round game. And Southampton were given a bye through to the fourth round.
I
wrote to the FA and said, "God, that's not fair. I mean, can't you just put us through? I know we lost the match, but just put us through. We're going to lose anyway." But
exactly. It's so big. And
I thought it was quite ironic that they never pulled out of the game the day before the game against us. And were they actually playing with COVID? I don't know. We'll never know. But
we'll never know.
It was quite sad actually, because the Shrewsbury manager was really seriously ill and was in hospital in a coma for a long time.
Oh my days!
But he was fine. He in the end he came round. But,
full recovery.
But Shrewsbury couldn't play the third round game, but they still got the money that they were entitled to for getting to that round.
Wow!
And that would have been really helpful to us. But
I bet it would.
By January, after that game, when the Southampton game was due to be on, we started to get crowds back in again.
Right.
But it was still only minimal numbers. It was reduced crowds. And what we had to do was borrow money from the government to be able to keep the club going.
Sure.
Because we weren't getting the income in. We weren't allowed to have drinks indoors, no indoor drinking.
Sure.
So clubs were borrowing money just to pay wages, and we went through the latter stages of that season borrowing money to be able to pay the players' wages and to keep playing football.
Was that the same as or similar to the whole bounce back scheme that they brought out?
Yeah, it was similar. Okay. It was similar to a bounce back. This was actually money that borrowed from the government. It's a loan at 3% interest, which is not bad, I suppose. But we've got to pay that loan back to the government. And we're one of the few businesses that were told, yes, you can stay open, but you're not allowed to earn any income.
Well,
so
I'll tell you that as well. I mean, if it was anything like bounce back, which is obviously worked out on a percentage of your income over the previous few years, what a joy that you'd had the few years before you had prior to COVID, where you had massively increased the revenue. I mean, could you imagine going into that period with the business in the same way that it was when you took it over, for example?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it did put us in a better position, but what we found was we've taken two years backwards. We basically increased our debt by another. We were 4 years in. We were 4 years into our plan, and we wasted 2 years. We set ourselves back 2 years by having to borrow more money just to get through the COVID situation.
Financially, yes, but on the field, not so much.
Not so much on the field, because by the end of that season, so we were playing up until March in 2021. And when the season was again shut down for the second lockdown, can you believe a second lockdown?
I know.
Or was it third lockdown? I can't remember.
So it was too many.
The season was ended and we were second in the league. We were second in the National League South. We'd gone on a run since that Shrewsbury game. We'd played, I think it was 12 games. We'd won 11 out of 12. we'd drawn the other one. We were catching Dorking, who were top of the division.
Sure.
And the way that our form was going, we really believed we were going to win the league that year and get automatic promotion. And suddenly the government announced the next lockdown, and the vote came in from all the clubs. Do we carry on playing behind closed doors again, or does the season end now?
Yeah.
And we were quite annoyed because the previous year when the vote came in about do we end the season now and do we promote and relegate teams, even though it didn't affect us because we weren't going up, we weren't going down. We said, yeah, do the normal promotion and relegation, or do a playoff, or do something.
Sure.
Let teams that are at the top get promoted. We were second in the league, and everyone said, no, abandon the season. It's void.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, because I remember it was the whole conversation was around null and void. You must have been driving you crazy that particular moment.
What we said, we've just borrowed a whole load. We borrowed hundreds of thousands of pounds to keep this club going, and now we might as well just chuck it all in the bin, because what have we just borrowed the money for? Because the season's been null and voided. It's all for nothing. And so we had to start again the next season in August 21, back from scratch again. And but we've got a balance sheet with a low ball down it, and
that's
painful. It was really bad. And there were teams like Dover in the National League that had basically given up and stopped spending the money because they were never going to be safe. But they got a reprieve because there was no relegation and no promotion that year. So we were quite annoyed.
I can bet. I would be too.
Yeah, but we had a good team. We kept the players together, and they knew they were on a good run. And we said, okay, we were second in the league. Let's see if we can follow that through next season and do it again. And what actually happened was we got to January the 1st in 2022, and the world's come back to normal. In January 2022, we were top of the National League South, and our manager David Oldfield announced he was leaving. He was going He was going to manage Weymouth, and I said, "Are you joking, David?" I said, "We're top of the league. Weymouth are one league above, but they're in the relegation zone. So the chances are they're probably coming down, but you're going to go there to try and save them.
Yeah,
go up with us." But David lived half an hour from Weymouth.
Right.
He wasn't working for the money. He was working to keep himself busy. He loved the game of football. He had a young family, and for his lifestyle, it suited him to be living and working in Weymouth. It took him 3 hours to get to us every day to come to work. So I understand why he did it. But we were disappointed because we said, "Why don't you just wait till the end of the season? 3 more months."
Well, forgive me for not knowing what happened to Weymouth. But what did happen? Did he keep them up? Was it a gamble worth taking, or did they go down?
They went down, and he got sacked.
So no, then that's football for you.
Yeah, we appointed our assistant manager into the manager's job, and we made the playoffs.
Wow.
Yeah, we never stayed top. We weren't quite good enough to stay top. And what had happened was the teams that had gone through that COVID year that had struggled had worked out where they'd went wrong. They'd gathered themselves together again and put the players in place. And we had Maidstone United walked away with the league and got promoted, and another team went up through the playoffs. And we were in the playoffs, but we lost to Dorking in the playoffs. And they were better than us. The previous season, they'd won the league, and it was abandoned. So I think fair enough for them. They were top of the league. It got abandoned.
They should have got up the season. They got abandoned. Yeah, okay, I understand
that. They beat us 3
that.
times in that next season. They beat us all 3 times. So fair dues. Okay. They deserved to go up. So we didn't go up in season 21 to 22. We finished 5th. We got to the playoffs for our first time ever in our history.
Wow.
Our fans were absolutely over the moon. The fact we got to the playoff, semi-final. We won the quarter-final. Right. We lost the semi-final, and we said, right, this is now 5 years in, and we've now achieved what we said we were going to achieve in 7 years.
Exactly.
So we did it a couple of years early, and so we said, right, let's have another go in 22 to 23. Let's see if we can make the playoffs again. Yeah. And that's obviously what happened. We made the playoffs in 22, 23, and this time round we got to the final and we won the playoff and we got promotion. And so we did that in the 7th season, which was 3 years before what our plan was. So,
well, firstly, congratulations, but that also takes us to an important part of 2023, which was a real change for you at the club. I'm curious. I mean, you mentioned earlier that you and Justin had this 10-year plan. Did you see that you would be involved in the role that you had for that full 10 years? Was your plan always to kind of get to 2023 and say, you know what, I'm going to have a bit of a rejig of my responsibilities within the club. How did that come to pass?
Yeah, I mean, when I came along, my focus was on keeping the club alive and trying to progress the club. And in the first 2 years, we had various cup runs and we stayed in the division, and they're all really good. But I said to Justin, if we could get a promotion to the National League, at least whatever happens, we can say we've achieved something that the club's never done before.
Sure.
And when we did that last year, I said, we're now, in the National League proper. We've got half the teams in there that are ex-Football League clubs that are much bigger than us, and it's going to be so difficult to stay there. We are the smallest club in the National League.
Sure.
If we manage to stay up this season, it'll be an even bigger achievement than getting the promotion, I think, because
I get that.
We're playing against full-time teams. We're not totally full-time. We're 4 days a week. We're sort of a hybrid model, some full-time, some part-time.
Right.
There are teams in our league with budgets of 6 times our budget. Having said that, there are 7 or 8 teams around us near the bottom that are very similar in size. But we are the smallest budget. And if we can stay up, it'll be great. But at the start of this season, we started to reassess what would we need to do as a football club to be able to, first of all, have a chance of staying in this division every year and maybe getting into the Football League one day. And we need to expand the club, but it needs investment. Not just investment on playing budget. It needs infrastructure investment.
Sure.
We've got a capacity of 3,700, which is okay. But to go into the Football League, we need to put more seating in, and we need to modernise the stadium.
Sure.
The viewing isn't particularly good, so it needs quite a lot of investment to take it to the next level. So Justin and I were 50-50 shareholders, and one of the problems with having 50-50 arrangement in any business is nobody's in charge.
Sure.
Yeah. If we both agree, it's fine. Everything happens.
Yeah.
If we don't agree, then you have the status quo. And so, we said, okay, we need to have somebody as the lead behind this and somebody who's not the lead. So I said, well, Justin, you become the majority shareholder for now. I'll take a minority shareholder. I'll put some of my shares back into the football club. I won't charge for them.
No.
I'll give them back to the club. If you can find an investor that will invest in the club and put money into the infrastructure. And that's what we did. So
great.
So I'm still a minority shareholder in the club. We've got some new investment coming in now. So we've put a new stand up. And what we're trying to do at the moment is bring more investors in to help share the workload, not just in terms of financial workload, but in terms of the day-to-day running of the football club.
Right.
Justin's involved every day in the football side and with the academy and the college program. So it made sense for him to be the person that's sort of leading it. In my business world, I'm not there as much as I used to be. And if I'm not a 50-50 shareholder, then I'm not really in control of it because I'm only down the club once or twice a week. So I said, right, I'll come off the board of directors, but because I'm still a shareholder of the club, I can still challenge the board to make sure they're doing their role, performing their role for the benefit of the football club.
Right.
I've got other interests. I'm in the logistics world.
Right.
Of various businesses involved in that, and I'm out of the country a lot, and I'm traveling around. So it was a point in my life where I thought it made sense for the benefit of the football club.
Sure.
It made sense for the benefit as me as well. I'm at the point now. I've just become 60 years of age this year.
Sure.
I don't feel I'm 60. I still keep myself fit. I still play football.
Yeah.
I still go to the gym every day. But I'm starting to think now. Do I need to slow down a bit? And to be honest with you, it takes me longer to get up in the morning than what it used to. And so I said, okay, let's just reassess the situation. And so I'm still as actively involved in the club now as I always have been, but I'm not involved on the day-to-day running. I'm still club secretary. I still arrange all the games. I still do all the transfers. I still negotiate the fees with the clubs, and I'm doing all the nice parts.
All the exciting stuff, yeah.
Football, yeah,
yeah, exactly. I like
so
that.
I talk to Ross Jenkins, the manager, every day. So I'm involved in all the good bits, but I'm not quite as much involved in the other bits.
Well, it feels like you've been able to almost, and I don't want to say this in a disrespectful way at all, it feels like you've been able to cherry pick the best bits while getting rid of some of the stuff that was causing a stress and a headache. That sounds like the best possible scenario.
Definitely, yeah. But also, the club's moving forward into a new direction now.
Sure.
And it needs more investment in the club. And I've got to the point where I don't want to be putting put more of my personal money into this business.
Sure.
I've still got my investment in there, and at some point in the future, that when the club can afford it, maybe I might get it back one day. But you know what it's like in football. You've got chairmen and owners that have put money in for years and years and years, and it only keeps going up and up, doesn't it? And
well, our good friend Steve Cleave says that buying a football club is the fastest way to lose your money. So what
they're saying is, how do you make a small fortune out of owning a football club? Well, you start off with a large fortune.
Large fortune, absolutely.
And you turn it into a small fortune.
100%, absolutely.
So we've got other people now that have come in to help take the club to the next level. We're trying to make the club more professional. Infrastructure changes. We had to put a new 3G pitch down at the end of last season. So the 3G that we put down in 2017 was worn out.
Wow.
So we had to spend $250,000 on a new one.
Right.
Just the top layer. So that had to come in. We needed some new investment to that as well. So we've got some new people on board. So it was an exciting sort of a changing point for the football club, where we brought some new people in. We formed a new board of directors, and so that's all running pretty well now. And so it's and people keep saying, "Oh, it's such a shame to see you go." I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, you're not gone. You're still there.
Game.
Yeah,
I'm still there. I'm still in the tunnel. I'm still doing everything, and I'm still loving it as much as I was before. But I've got a bit more energy now because I'm concentrating on the good bits, like you say.
Well, look, you're a modest guy, and you wouldn't say it in such words, but I guess the reason that they feel that level of sadness, both internally in terms of the staff, but also externally the fans, is that what you did saved the club.
Justin and I did a job that people said was impossible.
Yeah,
we were advised by lots of people, just give it up. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your money. You'll end up spending money and then end up
and still liquidate it anyway. Yeah.
And we said, no, if we put the right plan together and we execute the plan properly, we'll be okay. But it did need the local support of local businesses and the finance companies and everybody else. The local council has been really good with us. So it did need a lot of work from a lot of people, and there's been a lot. There's been a lot of goodwill in the town, and I walk around the city now, and people come up to me, and they never knew me before, but everyone knows me now, and they say, "How do you Paul?" And it's
nice.
Me, I'm very proud of what Justin and I have achieved in the last 7 years. But it's unfinished business. We really want to stay up. We don't want to go down this year.
You're within touching distance, though, aren't you?
We're 3 points from safety.
Yeah.
We've got 3 games coming up now against teams that are in and around us. And if we can win 2 of those 3 games, we'll move out of the relegation. But we've suffered massively with injuries. And one of the things that we didn't realise this year, and our manager didn't think about or didn't understand, was the extra stress it puts on players at this level. Yes. What we did at the end of last season, we said, right, how are we going to stay in the division? We looked at the smallest team in the league, and we said, right, what's their budget? Let's match their budget if we can.
Right.
We signed every player that got through the playoffs, because we knew that if we could keep that same 12 or 13 players together, we've got a good core bunch of lads that have been playing together for 2 or 3 years. And I think that's always a big issue. When you get promotion, don't change your team.
Yes.
Look at Nottingham Forest last year in the Premier League. They bought 30 new players. It took them half a season to get them playing.
Of course it did,
yeah. We kept everybody together and brought a few new additions in that were going to be good enough to keep us up. We got so many injuries in August and September. We lost 7 or 8 of those players that were with us last season.
Wow.
And we couldn't get them all. We couldn't get them all playing together. And it took us until December really to get them all coming back again. In fact, a couple of them still aren't back now. And we've never been able to keep the same 11. We've not announced the same 11 any week at all this season.
That's heavy.
Only now that we're starting to get them back again. And it's extra stress on the players. It's extra the extra workload. There's more running involved, and it is a professional game now.
Yeah.
And I think some of our players have found it difficult, and it's taken us till now really to realise what we need to do to stay in the division. And we've started to get. If you look at our last 5 games before Saturday, we lost 2-1, 2-1, 2-1, 2-1, 2-1. That tells you that we're in the games, but we're not quite good enough to get over the line. We won 2-0. We won 1-0 last week, and we kept a clean sheet, which is good. We've got a few new players coming in now to bolster the team up, but we think we know what's needed to stay up. But we have to get a little bit of luck with those injuries, and we were known as the best passing team in the division last year, but we've not been able to replicate that as well because of the injured players. But
because the players
we're going to get new goals, and we're not going to break the bank to stay up. We can't afford to do it. We have to think about next season. If we go down, we've got to make sure we're in a good position to be able to challenge again to come back again.
Yeah, absolutely.
We know what's needed to come up in the future.
Well, how many teams have we seen take that risk and it hasn't paid off, where you do spend big and then it ends up biting you in the backside, and then the following season now you're selling people, you're having to tighten the purse strings, and now you're in lots of trouble. So that's how clubs have fallen down the leagues.
Yeah. If you look at the National League North and South at the moment, you've got teams like Scunthorpe in there. You've got Yeovil Town, Maidstone. These are teams that were ex-Football League teams that have now dropped all that way. Look at Oldham Athletic. I like the Oldham Athletic scenario. No. So in the year 2000, we never had a stadium in 2000. We were playing on the grass pitch in the local league, Oxford City.
Right.
Oldham Athletic were Premier League.
Wow.
We're now in the same division. Yeah, so they've dropped down from Premier League to National League, and we've gone from nowhere to National League. We went to Oldham back in November. They've got a 25,000 all-seater stadium. It had about 9,000 in it, and it's an amazing experience to go and play there.
I bet
they absolutely smashed us, but it was just great to be involved with teams at that level.
And I love that. I really do, Paul. I mean, this is the love of the game, right? In many respects, the game that many of us fell in love with, doesn't exist at the top flight levels anymore, but it still does in the National League and thereabouts, right? It's the getting to chat with the players in the players bar afterwards. It's knowing the familiar faces. It's being able to see the people, like you said, bump into the people down the town and have a chat with them. It's being part of the central part of that community. Look, I think
community is the right word. Community is definitely the right word, because the first team, Oxford City first team, is only one small part of what we do.
Yes.
We've got 1,000 players, boys and girls, that play football. 37 teams. We've got 12 girls teams, 20 boys teams. We've got 5 disabled teams. We've got disabled football on a Sunday. Wow. We've got the 1,000 girls netball players. It's such a big community hub, and everything we do is all about the community. And the first team is just sort of the cherry on the top. And we always lose sight of the fact that we're all about the community and all about getting the kids involved, because that's where our next load of players are going to come from the youth section.
Yes.
Yes. We had a game last night. We played last night. We had a 16-year-old playing in our first team in a cup game last night. He's 16. Come through the youth section, he scored a goal. It's his first ever start in the his first ever start in the first team. He's actually a defender as well, but he scored a goal for us as a 16-year-old. And
what's his name?
His name is I've just gone and lost it now because I'm
sorry, I put you on the spot. Might as well give him a shout out.
His name's Phil. What's his surname? I'm absolutely useless at memory. That's another reason why I have to give up football. I can't remember anything. I'm just looking. His first name's Philip Croker.
Philip Croker. Well, congratulations, Philip Croker. Yeah. What an amazing special experience.
First team. We've got a few others on the verge. I've got my best mate. My best mate's boy. He's 17, and he plays in our development squad. He's just qualified for the England under-18 schoolboys.
Fantastic.
And he's an Oxford City under-18 player. And I taught that kid to kick a ball when he was 6 years old.
That's going to be a real sense of community pride there. I absolutely love that. I really do. Paul, you've been so great and generous with your time. I just have one final question for you. I mean, we were talking about this off air before we started. I'm always curious because it's such a polarizing topic when it comes to, you've been talking about community investment, for example, in the club. But what do you feel about this kind of outside investment like Wrexham have had from Ryan and Rob? And we were also talking just before about how it looks like Robbie Williams is about to buy Port Vale as well, and that's where their influx of cash is going to come from. Where do you sit on the fence for this? Is this something that you would like to see for Oxford City? Is this something that you think is a good thing or a bad thing for the league?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? The traditionalists say it's not fair because teams that have been around for 150 years and they've got this infrastructure that they've built over that time, and they've built up a fan base. And then suddenly a team comes along with a millionaire owner or billionaire owner and suddenly just buys their way into the Football League. So you've got conflicts of opinion on it. I mean, we've had it with Salford City, haven't we, recently with the Man United class of '92?
We certainly have
taken a team from nowhere into the Football League by putting money in. And it's business at the end of the day, isn't it? It's entertainment, and you can't stop it. It's progress. And I guess what we have to do is move with the times. And whilst it's great, you'd rather see the old traditional Aston Villas, Preston North Ends, and teams like that in the Premier League, but times do move on.
They certainly do.
I'd like to see a level playing field where there's a little bit more fairness between the haves and the have-nots. Not in the way that you see in America, where you have a closed shop and nobody gets relegated. I think I think the reason football does so well in the United Kingdom and England is you do have this promotion and relegation. So
Absolutely. It's what makes it exciting. Yeah.
Exciting. And with the playoffs and everything else, there's always something to play for. If you had this closed shop situation where there's no relegation, there's nothing in the game.
Oh no, I must confess. I mean, I'm obviously, I'm a Liverpool fan, and I'm often. I mean, right now I'm very blessed to be watching the top of the Premier League. But I have to tell you, outside of Liverpool, my favourite time of year is that period at the end of May when it's the playoffs, just back to back to back, the quarterfinals, the semi-finals, and then the finals at all divisions and levels. I find the playoffs just ultimately fascinating because, and as you've experienced both on the right side and the wrong side, it all comes down to, like, it is a league, yes it is, but it almost comes down to that cup style feeling of, well, yes, but everything we've worked towards and everything we've achieved this season depends on the next 90 minutes, and that's what makes that exciting from a fan's perspective.
Yeah, so our playoff in May last year, we played St Albans in the playoff final at home. We had 4,000 fans in the stadium, record crowd. We were 4-0 up at half time. I had to pitch myself. And
bet you did.
The second half was the most boring half of football you'd ever wish.
So 4,000 people left.
TNT Sport were showing it live on the TV in England.
Yeah.
And I don't think they were very happy with the actual way the game went, because they want extra time and penalties, don't they?
Oh, of course, yeah. They want drama.
Yeah, and we just sat back in the second half and said, okay, you can have the ball at your end, but we're not going to give away a 4-goal lead. But yeah, the playoffs are brilliant. But in terms of what your question was about the investment, I think as long as there's a modicum of financial fair play there, where you've got the pen in the same playing field, then I think it's okay. So, for example, in the Football League now, in the EFL, you've got it's not a salary cap as such, but you're only allowed to spend money based on the income you've got coming in.
Yeah, it's a percentage of the income you generate can be spent, yeah.
And at our level, it's very different. At the National League level, you can spend whatever you like, as long as you can afford it to spend it. You have to prove that you've got the money. So if I wanted to put £1 billion into Oxford City, I wouldn't be stopped doing that, as long as I can prove I've got the money to do it.
Right.
And that's probably a little bit unfair.
That's challenging.
And that's why Wrexham did what they did last season. They managed to get out, and spending the money on the playing budget is no guarantee of success, is it?
No, certainly not.
It takes them a long time. Luton Town took ages to get out, and look what happened. Once they finally got out of the National League, they went bang, 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 Premier League.
It. Yeah, absolutely.
And last night, Luton won 4-0.
They did.
They actually got some form going in the Premier League.
What a game that was as well. I had it kind of. I had multiple screens on at the same time, and I kept watching it. I kept seeing goals going. And I thought, no, this is going to go to the big screen. So I made that my main game for the day. That was fascinating. Okay, so serious question then. What do you see the future being for Oxford City?
We're in a consolidation period still. Our 10-year plan was always consolidation, but consolidation near the top of the National League South, or maybe the bottom of the National League proper. That's where we see ourselves. So if we stay up this season, it'll be lovely. If we get relegated again, we will still be having a go at trying to come back again the following season. So we're going to maintain a financial model that's sustainable football club that only spends what it can afford to spend based on the income it's got coming in. It's a business model that's going to keep the football club alive for another 140 years.
Love it.
And this is one of the problems with the owners coming in with money. It's okay as long as they're still putting the money in, but what happens when they stop putting the money in? Then it all goes wrong.
Well, as you experienced,
as
absolutely.
we experienced in the football club. So we have to make sure that you're not relying on one person to put the money in, and you've got various sources of income that are keeping the club going. And that's where I don't agree with the Abramovich scenario, where he comes in, chucks the money in, and Chelsea win the Champions League. And it's too much money. There should be some sort of cap on that. And I know they've got this: you're only allowed to lose X million pounds a year, and the other rules. But it just seems that some clubs like Man City have shown that if you've got good lawyers, you can postpone any legal action for as long as you want. Well, I mean,
like 115 cases or something they have open with them at the moment, or 115 charges, and it's been passed from season to season. Meanwhile, teams like Everton and potentially even Nottingham Forest are getting punished. So, no, I agree, and I think that will come. I mean, look, football is like any walk of life; it's not perfect. But I think there will become more regulations and things like that as time goes on. At what level those happen and when it gets sort of trickled down, I have no idea. But I firmly agree with you.
Coming now in the United Kingdom, which is I'm undecided on this one, but I think what the government has said to the Premier League and the FA is, if you can't get your house in order, we'll do it for you.
Yeah. Well, I'm also on the fence with that one. The reason being, I'm fond of the idea. The execution, let's see. I think is probably where I am with this. Paul, I've been really grateful for your time. Thank you so much. Hang around and you and I have a quick chat after the end of the recording. But I just want to say thank you so much. I'm sure our audience do too, and especially the Oxford City fans listening and watching this. I'm sure they're very grateful for everything you've done. So thank you for everything you've done for the club. Thank you for what you've done to football, and just thank you for bringing the passion that you do to the beautiful game.
Phil, it's been great to talk to you.
You too, brother. Thank you.
If that's what you want, making money while you in your boxer shorts, feel like nothing and nobody is stopping you. Even when I said it was impossible, no need for hesitation. Phil P, yeah, that's your man. Go from the best kept secret to the